These infections, 29,173 new infections yesterday, Minister, sustained drop over 5 days. How optimistic are we as a government that this is going in the right direction?
Well, I think, we all know how quickly it can go back up again. And whilst it's very good news to see those numbers going down, I think it does show how important it is that we continue to take issues like self-isolation really seriously as well, and continue to encourage people to get that vaccine and the double vaccine indeed, because that's going to be the way that we get out of this longer term.
I'm glad you brought up the self-isolation, because the bloke that came up with the app, Professor Christopher Fraser, Chief Scientific Advisor for the app, says really we should be scrapping that self-isolation requirement now and replacing it with double jab. Is the government going to take note of that?
Well, I think we do know what an important tool it is, the self-isolation, to get on top of the virus. But from August the 16th, of course, all adults that have been double vaccinated, they won't need to self-isolate unless they've got symptoms or a positive test. So that's, again, another reason to really encourage people to go out and get that second vaccine.
Yeah, the unions are agreeing with you, actually. Certainly the RMT union this morning saying that actually it doesn't matter that some of their members are double vaccinated. They should be allowed to stay at home if they've been pinged, and that the government is putting their members' health at risk by asking them and expecting them to go in.
So I think it is important that we also minimise the disruption to the economy. And that's why we've looked at certain really, really crucial sectors and are saying that in those circumstances, those double vaccinated adults, if they haven't had the positive test, they don't have any symptoms, then they can continue to work. But this is a really, really small number of people in order to keep those truly essential services running. And services like, for example, police, fire, border control, some of the food sector, and some elements of transport as well. But as I said, the key date to move forward to is just in a couple of weeks' time, that August the 16th, where all adults who've had that double vaccination, and they will be able to avoid the self-isolation unless they've got symptoms or the positive test.
So are you saying to the RMT union, who are threatening legal action on behalf of its members, that it is safe for their members to go to work, despite them being pinged, if they've been double jabbed?
I'm saying that we need to continue to keep those critical areas of the economy open as far as possible. We need to move on to this next stage, which will be, at the moment, is on August the 16th. And that's an important date because that's a date by which we'll have more adults double vaccinated, but also we'll have had that fire break since the end of the school term as well. So that's why we're looking forward to that date.
Yeah, but to answer my question, Minister, is it safe for RMT members to go to work even if they've been pinged, if they've been double vaccinated?
Well, every single employer obviously needs to look at the safety of their staff, as they've done throughout this, and they've had good guidance. We've got many employers who are saying in these really, really crucial sectors of the economy, and it will only be the most critical of the critical workers, if I can say that, who, for those workers, if they have had the double vaccination, then they can come back if they continue to have that negative test.
So it's okay for them to risk their health?
I think it's really important that all employers look at the safety arrangements that are put in place, and they continue to have discussions with the health officials. And this is something that we're continually looking at as we move through the next stages of the pandemic.
OK, let me put it another way then. If it is safe for them, if they've been double jabbed, to go to work, even if they've been pinged, why not for others?
So what we need to do is make sure that we get as many vaccinations into people's arms, because that is an absolutely key part of beating the vaccination, which is why we want to have the next couple of weeks of getting those more vaccinations before we move into that next stage for the rest of the double vaccinated adults. But we've also got many of those in these really, really essential services saying, if they have adults who have had the double vaccination, who've had the protection of that a couple of weeks after you get your vaccination as well, that they would be able to return to the workplace. But the employers will obviously need to look at that very closely as well. And many employers have been putting in places mechanisms to make sure that that can also keep workers safe.
Yeah, so if you are double jabbed and you've had a fortnight after your last jab, then you are safe to go to work.
Well, we know that people can still get COVID after having had a double jab, but we also know that having had the double jab means it's far less likely to be a really serious or life-threatening illness. And so that's why it's not quite so simple as saying, once you've had your double vaccination, you'll never get COVID, because that's simply not the case. But we know that having the double vaccination reduces both the chances of serious life-threatening illness, but also reduces the amount of transmission that you'll give to other people.
Yeah, but what's the magical day of the 16th of August then? I mean, I had my second jab in April. It's a long time since I had my second jab. Why will I be safe on the 16th of August, but potentially not safe today?
This is all about keeping the whole community and how we react together as a community. And as I said, the date of the 16th of August was set because it's been a far break since the end of the school term. So we won't have seen so many people mixing in schools, but also it'll have meant that more people will have been able to get that second vaccination. And as I said, the second vaccination can help reduce the amount of transmission that's going through community.
Yeah. Talk to me about travel, if you would please. Spain, France, Greece. What's the government's advice if people have a holiday booked for those countries?
Well, as we know, we've always looked at each different country's situation individually, and I would advise people to look at the advice that's coming through from gov.uk and make sure that they follow that guidance on each of these different countries. I obviously can't preempt any decisions that might be made by the transport team. As Children's Minister, I won't preempt their decisions.
No, indeed not. But you are representing the government this morning. So the third of a million Brits that headed out over the weekend, they will be anxiously wondering whether they're going to have to cut short their holidays to come back to the UK if we change the rules again. What is the discussion within government?
Well, I think it's really important that people do look at the rules, and people who have booked holidays overseas will have known that, there's a risk of situations changing. But as we've now had the pandemic, for many, many months now, and as we've all seen, the situation can change. And that's why it's very important that we in the UK also look at what's happening with other countries overseas, and that people do follow the guidance that's appropriate to the country that they're returning from.
Yeah. Are you holidaying overseas this year?
No.
OK. Talk to me about, we talked about the 16th of August. Let me take you further forward to October, students returning to university. Do they have to be fully vaccinated in order to attend lectures?
So what we've always done throughout this pandemic is prioritised access to university. And one of the things that we really want to do is encourage young people to get that double vaccination, because, as I've said, that's the way that you'll minimise disruption to your own university career. And I will certainly be encouraging both of my student sons to have their second vaccination before they go back to university.
Will it become a requirement?
No, we must make sure that we continue to prioritise education. And if they want to be able to avoid the self-isolation, such as we have said for other adults, double vaccinated adults by August 16th, if you have not got a positive test, if you don't have symptoms, you won't need to self-isolate. So for the students who are returning to university, that's a really important.
OK, I think that's both of your young boys trying to get in touch with you via your computer as we're chatting this morning. And let's talk about kids that are younger. You're here to talk about adoption today.
Yes, this is a really, really important message that I'm giving today. We're launching a new adoption strategy today. And the really good news is that over the past decade, the number of children that are waiting for adoption has more than halved. And we know that the best place for children is to be in a loving, stable family. But unfortunately, there are some children who can't stay with their own birth parents. And for some of those children, being adopted is the best solution. So in our adoption strategy that we're launching today, we're significantly increasing support for adoptive families. We set up the Adoption Support Fund about 6 years ago, and that provides ongoing therapy and family support to adoptive families. And we're more than doubling that today, but also putting in new national standards to make sure that all adoption across the country is well supported. And that'll be through the regional adoption agencies that we've been setting up over the past few years, and which cover nearly all of the country. And we really want to make sure that children who do need that loving, stable, forever family can get there as quickly as possible. So we're also encouraging adopters from all sorts of backgrounds or different ethnicities or walks of life to step forward to consider adopting and making that loving family for a child.
Oh, do you need to have a cough? It looks as though you needed a little bit of water then. I didn't know if it was that or you were being very emotional. You need a bit of water, don't you? I just wanted to ask you quickly before your cup of tea, lovely. Before I let you go, lots of friends asking me over the weekend, when you get that government minister on the programme on Monday morning, ask them whether we've reached the peak of the third wave and we can start to go down the other side and at least have some respite over the summer. What should I tell them?
Okay, I wish it was always that easy to predict what's going to happen next. It's obviously been very good and heartening to see that testing numbers come down the past couple of days, but we know it can go up again. So I would just encourage people to go out and get that vaccination, get that second vaccination, because that is why we're seeing so many fewer people getting really sick from this virus. But I'd also encourage people to, still do follow those rules. And if you are asked to self-isolate, then do that, because that's the way that you continue to protect others.
And a thought for your Health Secretary this morning. He got a proper kicking over the weekend after saying that we shouldn't cower from COVID. He misspoke. Was it any more than that?
Well, he apologised for that and quite rightly deleted his tweet and has given a very heartful apology. I mean, Sajid himself has lost relatives to COVID and knows that awful grief that so many families have. But I think what he's trying to do is encourage us that we can also have that hope from the vaccine, that people, by having that vaccine, and there are many people in this country have stepped forward and leading the world, and it's 7 out of 10 adults have now had their double vaccine. But we do need to continue to keep that momentum up, and especially for younger adults to please step forward, because that will protect you from getting sick, and it will protect the people that you love and your neighbours as well.
Okay, good to talk to you. I must let you go.